Joining us now for analysis, former Georgia Congressman and current chairman of Liberty Guard, Bob Barr. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very interesting what we're seeing there, not just in Russia, but around the world, including here in the United States.
No doubt about that. Bob, so Russians still haven't been able to take over any major city. That's a good thing. Germany is sending military weapons to Ukraine, so they do have more ammo at their fingertips. Ukrainian President Zelensky said the next 24 hours are key. So, Bob, Ukrainians are putting up a good fight. It seems the world has been surprised by the tenacity of the Ukrainian people. Your thoughts?
Well, one thing that I like is the fact that they apparently have, if not a Second Amendment in the Ukraine, certainly some law that provides for citizens to own, possess, and use firearms in self-defense of self, country, and family. So that's the good news there. What I don't quite understand, though, is why the United States, the Biden administration in particular, can't go all in on the sanctions. For example, Aeroflot, that is the Russian national airline, is banned from flying over the European continent and Canada, but not the United States. There's no reason why we shouldn't be part of that. Also, the next serious step needs to be to establish a no-fly zone, at least over those parts of Kiev that are at war, actively at war with Russia.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point. I mean, the U.S. should certainly also invoke the same thing as the EU and Canada. They shouldn't be able to just fly over here willy-nilly. Let's get to this, though. Peace talks between Ukraine and Russia have begun on the border of Belarus. President Zelensky's office said the key issue of those talks is an immediate ceasefire and withdrawal from troops from Ukraine. But just moments after, dozens were just killed in a bombing in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. So what message is Russia trying to send here?
Well, Russia is sending Putin's message, and that is this is a man who understands the use of force. If we push back, if the Ukrainians push back and push back hard, he understands that. I think Putin dramatically underestimated both the will and the power of the Ukrainian military, its citizenry, and its leaders. And I think he also underestimated the vehemence with which the West has come out in support of the Ukraine. I don't think that Russia can sustain not being able to take over Kiev and other major cities. Hopefully they will not be able to, but if they go another day or two without being able to, I think that Putin will show himself to be very, very weak. His military will be understood to be far weaker than they had projected. And hopefully the United States will develop a little more backbone and stand up to him the way the Europeans are.
You're absolutely right on that. I mean, spot on. There's been talk, of possible cyber attacks that's been happening. The White House Deputy National Security Advisor has warned the private sector to actually ramp up their security in additional federal agencies. How concerned should we be about this?
We should be very concerned about it, but from what I understand, and I'm no longer a part of my old employer, the CIA, so I don't have any inside information. But as I understand it, and reading between the lines, the United States has very significant anti-cyber warfare capability, and we need to make sure that it is in place and monitored constantly, not just by government entities at all levels, including the state level, but also private companies. Russians are notorious, along with the North Koreans and others around the world, for launching hacking attacks against companies and governments. We know that they do this. If we're not prepared for it, which I think we are, then shame on us.
Yeah, I do want to, this is something I saw yesterday. Bob, take a look at this. The Biden administration has instructed Americans to social distance and wear masks in the event of a nuclear fallout. Here's an image right there on our screens. Okay, this is what it's saying on the official homepage. This is just bizarre to me. First off, okay. As you saw earlier, a nuke was on that front home screen, so very unnerving here. But listen to their guidelines. Let's bring that back on screen if we can. First, in the event of a nuclear explosion, if that were to happen in America, quote, it's saying get inside the nearest building to avoid radiation, brick or concrete at best. Next, stay inside. Make sure you're inside for 24 hours. Continue to practice social distancing by wearing a mask and keeping a distance of at least 6 feet between yourself and others. Um, so, Bob, I don't know. In the threat of being nuked, do you think it's going to be the first thing on my grocery list of items and worries if I'm going to be properly distanced from someone as a nuke is coming my way?
This points out the stupidity of government in general terms. It harkens back to the days shortly after 9/11, when the Department of Homeland Security, I think it was, told people to put plastic over their windows and tape it with duct tape so that not just radiation at that point, but anthrax could not get in. I mean, sometimes government is just so stupid you have to laugh at it.
I mean, totally, but do we need to be worried about a nuclear threat right now? I feel like the fact that that's even on, a official government homepage right now, it's unnerving. It's pretty scary.
I don't think so. I do think that certainly any world leader, particularly of a major country with nuclear capability that threatens something in using the word nuclear, has to be taken seriously. But the real threat here, I don't think, is that Putin would use nuclear weapons. I think the real threat is that the thermobaric weapons could be used against Ukraine, which could result in massive casualties. But if Putin indeed takes that sort of barbaric step, I think that world opinion would turn so hard against him that he would be forced out of power.
Absolutely. Also, bringing it back home for a minute, obviously, due to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline being halted, Americans are worried about the rising costs in gas and fuel prices. So should they be running, Americans, should they be running to the gas stations in a panic right now, or maybe to the ATM and their banks to get cash?
No, what they should be doing is make sure they've registered to vote in November so that the Republicans can take back the House and the Senate and bring some sanity back to our government, which, of course, stopped the ability of the United States to remain an energy independent nation. I don't think, though, that simply because we do, in fact, in the great scheme of things, import some oil from Russia, that it's going to cause a major run on oil resources here. We have sufficient reserves to take care of any emergency, and I don't think that this is going to last so long that it would cause serious disruptions here at home. But the steps that the Biden administration took early on in 2021 created the at least possibility that there could be a serious problem with energy.
While you're here, I do want to get your predictions for what's to come next. I mean, I mentioned earlier, so far Russia is unsuccessful in conquering any city. I do know that they are making their way to the capital there in Kiev. What do you think is going to happen next, being that the Ukrainian military so far is holding their defenses pretty strong right now?
If, in fact, the additional military equipment from Europe and the United States gets into the hands of the Ukraine military and civilian militias, and if, in fact, a no-fly zone is instituted, even if it's partial, I think that the Ukrainians will stand a real good shot at turning the tide against Russia, and it would force them to the negotiating table. But if Russia is able to stop those additional supplies from getting into the hands of those who need them, and if the West buckles and does not institute a no-fly zone, even if it's just Europe and not the United States, then the Ukrainians will suffer a lot more than they need to.
Just awful what's happening, and I'm sure we're going to be following this. Way more to come. Updates are coming every 5 seconds, it seems. Bob Barr, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dana.